Hi guys, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of our IX podcast. Today we have with us Roy Nelson. Roy, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you inviting me.
No problem. I know, in the last couple episodes we had Jake Anderson on. We've had Jason Anderson. We've kind of been talking about, obviously, debt. But before we get into debt and start talking about, crypto and all these commodities and all this stuff, I think what a lot of people don't realize is me and you had a conversation about 2 years ago or so.
It's three.
2.5, 3 years ago when I was just starting IX. And, you guys were talking about gold and these mines, and you came over to Brian Robert's house. I remember this, and it happened a couple times, right? It wasn't just one meeting, but this one meeting, I remember you guys came over, and I think it might have been the first time I met Shad, or
yeah, it was the first time you met Shad.
You guys came over with bags full, and I don't know if I can say this on camera, but you guys had all this, raw material that you guys were just bringing back for testing and
Yes.
and quality control and certification from some of the mines out there, right? You guys were mining for gold at the time, and I seen all these pictures, and you're showing me, and I still have some of them about the technology that you guys were using to identify where these reserves are for these gold mines. And you were talking to me about, the government agencies out there. You had just got a certification letter from the Minerals Commission out there. And I think, we talked about doing something, but then we kind of went our own ways, right? And it's about 3 years ago, like you said, we were just starting. We weren't geared up as a community, as a network marketing company to bring in a product like what we have today with DebtBox. But maybe talk a little bit. I know your expertise in the ecosystem as far as a member of the Debt Council is the physical side, the commodity side of this. So maybe talk to us a little bit about kind of like the day-to-day, and we'll talk a little bit about BGLD. But let's start in Ghana, right? How many times have you been out to Ghana? What do you do out? You love Ghana so much.
I love Ghana. Ghana's awesome. Yeah. I've been to Ghana a lot. In fact, to take it way back, it was back in 2010, 2011, I went with Jake and Jason and their dad to Ghana. And that was my first time to Ghana. And I fell in love with the place. Yeah. And what was amazing was when we first went there, we hired some guys to start digging test pits on some concessions that they had acquired. And in mining, which that's my background, in mining, what's interesting is most of the time when you're testing, you have to run a lot of material to get any kind of grade or much gold in a pan. We went out, and most gold doesn't live in the topsoil. We went out, we dug down 3 feet, we were still in topsoil, and we got a lot of gold. And I was like, baby, I'm home. This is where I need to be.
I love that too, because I went out there just a month or two with you guys, with the whole group. And number one, I have my boots. It was a little bit muddy out there. I still have the clay on my boots. Yeah. And I just feel like that soil, there's like something different about it, right? There's like something different about that soil. It just seems so rich. It feels like it has so many natural resources in the ground. You can just feel it when you get there for some reason. At least that's how I felt.
Absolutely. I felt the same way when I first got there. So what's interesting is while we were in Ghana originally, we had some rainstorms. We were looking at a couple of different sites. We were looking at with the Andersons about getting some additional concessions, and it started raining. And the road literally was slushing gold when it rained. It was nuts, absolutely crazy. And I saw that, and I'm like, man, I am definitely home. So kind of carrying forward from the beginning to further into the process, Shad and I decided, look, we're gonna take a real heavy run at this. And this was previous to our meeting 3 years ago. And though I knew you prior to that, meeting at Brian's house, we decided we were going to make a good run at it. And so we started the process, which kind of led up to the launch of DLG. Yeah. Now, to be fair, we had curated quite a bit of technology that allowed us to do things such as Explore, where Explore comes in. And we took that process. We spent 3 years working with the government of Ghana to get that certified with the government of Ghana. So when you and I met, that was
it was the basically the tipping point of kind of
Absolutely.
what you guys had done in the previous, call it 5 years, 7 years, to
Yep.
even fast forward 3 years now, you guys have better relationships over there.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the, I'm sure, blood, sweat, and tears that have gone into DLG, Explore, and just proving this. Because, well, we've had until about a year ago, you guys did proof of concept for the physical side, that the actual technology works, that the element or the mineral or whatever it is going to be where the technology says it is, because that's a big undertaking, right?
Yeah.
What was that process like? And I know also maybe talk about working with the developing nation's government at the same time. What's that like? I think a lot of people working with any government's hard, right?
Yeah, any government's tough. Any government's tough. I mean, the BLM here in the United States, very difficult because of the red tape. In Ghana, the red tape is thick. It's extremely thick, and it's all about relationships. And so when we initially started, the government of Ghana brought an area to us, a concession. We didn't know anything about it. We'd never seen it. And they said, okay, we want to test you guys because this seems to be voodoo or black magic. It's crazy. And we said, yeah, it seems that way, but we've done so many tests on it. We know that it works. They said, okay, here's this plot of land.
Some random plot.
Yeah. And they said, we didn't know literally anything about it. I had no idea how to get there. They drove us out there. Fortunately enough, we weren't blindfolded or anything. but they took us out there and we got the coordinates. Then we did a field survey. We then took the satellite. We ran the process on the satellite to be able to determine what was there. And we found veinlets of gold. We found big veins of gold, and we found alluvial material. And for those who are not familiar with alluvial material,
I was just going to ask, what is that?
Right, that's kind of the flour gold or the kind of semi-coarse gold that's in very small pieces that accumulates over time and falls in a false bedrock or a clay or gravel. And so we found a lot of that, and we were able to identify that. So we took the map and showed it to the government, and they said, well, let's start digging. And so we set a plan. We marked the holes we were going to dig. We hired the crews. So you had the opportunity to see
how it was getting done.
Yeah, how they get it done, how they run a test hole. They don't use machinery. They do it by hand.
Yeah.
It's like a human ant, right?
Yep. And I know we have some B-roll of that, so maybe we can get that added to this part of the video. And so you can actually see the people going out there. They're just pick, shovel, and this makeshift, I don't know what you call them, but the makeshift wash plants.
It's a long tom.
It's just amazing.
It is.
It is crazy. So you go through this whole process. You're working out in Ghana for so long, and I know you were kind of working with the Andersons in Ghana, and then I know I'm trying to put the story together in my head, but then Jason kind of maybe pulls out of Ghana a little bit, doesn't travel out there as much as maybe you and Shad, who have stayed on the physical side, on the ground, boots on the ground. How did the idea of marrying crypto with a commodity-backed token come to life? And I know when we started talking, it was kind of an idea, but then I lost track of you guys for 6 to 8 months or something, and you guys had this whole system up, and I was amazed because when I was like, wait, this is that thing Roy was doing, right? And I was in Dubai when I called you, I think, and I'm on my way back. We gotta set up this meeting. You gotta meet my partner, Jason Anderson, and I was like, all right, well let's do it, right? And that was the beginning. This was 10 months ago.
Right. Yeah. So that was interesting because in that process, we determined that with a lot of the cryptocurrency, and actually it carries back a little further than that, we had been working on a bank in Nevada. And we'd spent 5 years working on that bank simultaneous because we were working on the gold mines to be able to bring gold-backed banking back into existence. And we had worked on a virtual currency that coupled gold and the currency for, people that wanted to bank that maybe were less bankable or not bankable at all. And so we went down that process, and when we got together again with Jake and Jason out, and we have a very close relationship. Jake and I have known each other for north of 20 years.
Wow.
And so we got together, and they had talked to us a little bit about what they had been doing. And we had already started development on a cryptocurrency to couple gold and a crypto together. And we decided to hook wagons and just make a good run at this. And so as we came up with that, what we determined was with a lot of these, and the stories correlate so well in the matching up of us coming together, because a lot of the issues that we saw were that there's all these rug pulls. You get a famous person,
celebrities out there,
that says,
pump
"Hey,
it up.
I'm going to pump it." It gets huge, and then they pull the rug. Whether that was the owners, whether that was the celebrity, but the rug pull took place. And as we got together and looked at this, we're like, well, if we can couple commodities and the royalties coming off commodities, then there's something real there. And if we can couple those with the cryptocurrency, that physical matched with cryptocurrency makes it a very, very tangible thing. Whereas in crypto, it's not really tangible. There's a couple of cute puppies that run around, and that was a nasty rug pull.
The meme coins.
The meme
out there,
coins, yeah.
So we've been talking basically Ghana, the foundation of DLG, the DLG project within the debt ecosystem right now.
Yes.
Now let's kind of fast forward. You guys went from that to BGLD, right?
Right.
And that launched November 2022, 2021?
Yeah.
And so it's been about a year and a couple months right now.
Yep.
And kind of how did you make that switch from, gold over to black gold or oil in that sense?
So mining is mining, processing is processing. There's different techniques, different paths and processes that you have to run, but
the fundamentals are the same.
Fundamentals are the same. Mineral recovery is basically the same. And so, in principle. And so as we were going down that path, we noticed that, nobody's going to take a delivery of a barrel of oil at their house, nor would it actually be legal unless they're licensed to receive that. And so in that process, everything we looked at with the commodities, and I'll talk about this here in a second in a little more depth with gold, only because it makes a lot of sense with gold, but to make something fungible is very difficult when it's tangible and it's big and bulky or heavy or not everybody accepts it, right?
Yeah.
And so in that process to try to make it fungible, we looked at that and said, look, if we can match these royalties and couple these royalties with a token, it makes it fungible. It actually makes that gold fungible. It makes that oil fungible. And so that royalty became kind of the coup d'etat to match those two together so that people, average people that don't have, massive portfolios and they're not, accredited investors could take advantage of a similar type asset and make a go of that and be successful at it. And what better way to do that than mine?
Yeah. Right. And so you're kind of talking there. We have in the ecosystem, right? At least I call them. We have the deliverables and then the non-deliverables, right?
Correct.
And in the ecosystem or the white papers, the way I look at it, and I always try to teach people is, look, you have some projects that are linked to the actual physical commodity, right? In the sense of currently DLG that could change in the future.
Yes.
And then you have something like a gas and oil project like BGLD or NATG, where I don't want a barrel of, sitting in my corner there. Like, how am I going to turn that into like grocery money for the family, right? Or how am I going to put gas? I can't take that actual oil and put it into my truck, and it has to go through the refinery process. But I want the value of that in my home, in my budget, right?
Exactly.
And so there's what I want people to understand is there's two different types of essentially projects that we have. We have linked to, which could be the case of any type of metal, or we have the supported by the actual production or sale of the actual commodity, right? Which is a case of like a gas and oil type of thing.
Gas and oil. Yep.
So
or grow.
Or grow, yeah.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about gas and oil real quick. NATG, Black Gold. I know I've gone out to the Nebraska site with you guys, and we were out there, and I kind of seen that was my first time ever stepping ground, and I've seen it when it was just a flat piece of dirt, and I've seen it when there was what do you call it? The well stood up, hundreds of feet in the
air.
Rig,
the derrick was up, and
And so, kind of what has that process been for you, learning, from gold to oil, and also helping expand the project into different projects that are up and coming on the physical side?
Yeah, so that transition was kind of a crash course in the process of extracting oil and gas. The geological side of it's the same. So we're dealing with geology, and geology is formed the same all over the whole world. You've got tectonic plates, you've got uplifts, you've got things that get trapped in there, and the gas and the oil from the breakdown of foliage and things like that generate gas is not much different than mining gold. So in gold, we're chasing something that's very, very physical, very tangible. It's not liquid, it's not gas, and you find it pretty much in the same location everywhere you go. It's either at bedrock, or it's trapped in gravels, or it's in veins. And so transitioning that over to oil was not a difficult thing, because as you're looking for oil, and we have an advantage with the XPLR technology that we use. The advantage that we have is we know right where it's at. We can take a pre-look. We don't have to expend crazy efforts in trying to find that. And so when we're working with a company who wants to drill and who wants to explore that, the advantage we have is we can horse trade with them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a term we use a lot of time.
And when I went out to Nebraska, I kind of want to just have people kind of relive some of this, right? We went out to Nebraska, and up until this point, the only people in that box that I had met were, you, but I hadn't seen you for months. I'd probably been dealing more with Jason and Jake on the digital side, because that's where I would say I'm more on the sales and marketing side on the digital stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of finally reconvene out there. And I thought it was going to kind of be, you guys, but then you guys have this whole team of, geologists and the landowners out there, and you have, the actual roughnecks, if it's okay to call them that.
Yeah,
absolutely. They're doing the hard work. Yeah. And, talk about the teams that you guys have been able, the people, because they're knowledgeable people.
They're experts in their field.
Yeah. So let's talk about them and kind of how they've helped on the physical production side. It marries into and feeds into the digital side, right? And people haven't been able to see it.
Right. In fact, I would have loved to have had everybody in Africa or everybody in Nebraska to be able to see it, because until you see it, it's you can't imagine what it's like to show up and see it. The process for us to actually build the teams that we've been able to build on the physical side, it's been a blessing to have those individuals fall on our laps.
And what I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong here, from being able to hear, I can't remember his name, but he was one of the geologists out there. I feel like they've spent so much of their career refining this technology and building it, that they're so passionate about, being able to get a satellite in space.
Yeah. And
they've dedicated decades of their whole life to this, basically this achievement, if you will, of the refining the technology and the scans and XPLR. And so those people are just people that nobody on the digital side knows.
Right.
They don't know any of those people, but there's, I would probably say dozens, if not close to hundreds of people, from the landowners to geologists, scientists, whatever kind of ist that could be out there, that are in some way or form involved in DebtBox through the projects, BGLD, NATG, or any of the individual projects. So you probably get to interface with them a lot more than I do. Let's talk about some of these people, not specifically, but let's talk about kind of what makes up the physical side of DebtBox.
So what it's taken to make up the physical side of DebtBox is to really find talented individuals in their field. We have a number of geologists that we work with on a daily basis. We have roughnecks that we work with on a daily basis. And we've got roustabout crews, and we've got pipeline crews, and we've got, geologists, and we work with the commissions, oil and gas commissions of the states that we go into. And so it's a significant heavy lift to bring a project online, because our process is we're seeking the royalty. That's what we're after.
Yeah.
Because it supports the token. And so going through that process, we've got a lot of due diligence. We've got attorneys involved doing due diligence. Is this, is all this paperwork in the leases that are on that land legitimate? Is everything okay? Is everything done properly? So that we can then properly go ask for the royalties. And so we're interfacing all the time, and we've got video reels of a lot of these guys that we interface with. But some of the key individuals for us have been in certain very talented roughnecks and drillers and geologists, and that interface has really developed a significant, strong team for us. I talk to these guys sometimes 7-8 times a day, sometimes in the middle of the night. There's a lot of project. It's a lot of project management. It's a lot of project management. In fact, we've got multiple project managers on the projects just to manage. It's like herding cats.
Yeah. And
right?
So we're recording this right now, and it'll be released later this week. And let's talk a little bit about BGLD and NATG for what we have, what can be announced essentially. I know you've been working on some stuff here stateside. Yeah. Maybe talk a little bit. I'd rather you announce it, kind of what's in the works for BGLD and NATG here in the States that you've been working on, because I haven't seen you for a couple of months since we got back from Ghana.
Yeah, I've been on the road pretty much the whole time. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming with BGLD and NATG. So currently, this being an announcement, we've got 17 wells coming online that we've been able to branded wells coming online. They'll be branded NATG and BGLD wells.
That's awesome.
We've been able to negotiate that into the royalties that we can brand these. We're currently in process of evaluating, doing due diligence, negotiating. So we've got varying projects that are at various stages. But we've got over 7 projects we're looking at to bring online for royalties in this process. And so usually in a process of adoption, right, it was real slow in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
We had to prove ourselves, and they had to see that it was not black magic. It's not voodoo, right? And when they were able to see that, they're going, man, this is crazy. This is the best thing since sliced bread. So people are now saying, look, we're interested. We want to move forward. So in that process, we're going through a lot of those. And part of the announcement is that we've got 44 wells we're trying to get nailed down right now. Soon to follow 100 wells.
Wow.
And these projects, we're just going through the process right now with the commission offices to make sure everything's solid.
Correct.
We're negotiating with
everybody
owners.
has what they say they have, and
Absolutely.
It's all good. Yeah.
And
I think sometimes people forget about that, right? The due diligence part of this, because people say, well, how long could it take to drill a well? And I've seen comments like that, like, oh, I've been in gas, but they don't understand. Yeah, okay. If you've been a roughneck on a drill on a well and you've drilled, it's going to take a couple of weeks and you're going to figure out. But how long did it take the landowner, the investor, the lawyers to get it to a point where you were even able to stand up that rig? Right. Mm-hmm. So you guys have to go through all of that process before to assure you have the royalty so you can support the ecosystem, right? If not, why do it? Right?
Exactly.
And the next question I have there, Roy, is, you've been out there, and I know Jason said you got some pictures out there. You've been to a lot of these sites over the last 60 days or so.
Yep.
What is... they call it black. You're calling it black magic in the beginning, but what are the people saying about the technology, about the Explorer technology? Is that the reason they're coming in? Kind of talk to us about kind of what are people always ask, well, why is a well going to partner with DebtBox, for example? Why are they going to do that? And I try to tell them, well, it's because of the technology. It could be because of liquidity that they could. It depends on what we're trying to negotiate, right? But talk about a little bit of there's projects that you guys have stood up, wildcats from, A to Z that you guys have done, invested in, done everything, right? Negotiations with the landowners. But there's also these newer ones coming on that you guys are going out and showing them, look, this is the value we could bring to you. And what's the reception been for you that's been out there on the ground with these guys?
So the reception has been phenomenal because, again, going back to the technology, we're able to horse trade, right? I'll bring you this technology, and what I want in return is a royalty. And so we've been able to swap, to trade work, right? For them to be able to say, look, you're telling me right now that it's at, 7,500 feet or it's at, 2,500 feet. And we're able to say with a certainty, yes, it's there. And so as they have gone through the process, they've looked at that and they've said, you know what, you've hit it,
Mm-hmm.
you've hit it, you've hit it. So that swap for them has been pretty minimal, pretty easy, because what it would have taken for them to go through a standard process, a lot of the holes that are drilled in the United States are dry holes because they're just poking around trying to find a sweet spot where they can pull oil out. Now they know the formation, right? They know that 7 miles away somebody hit oil and 2 miles away somebody hit oil. And so with the geology, there should be pretty good option here. But the thing about geology, and a lot of people don't understand, is this table right here is a flat plane.
Yeah.
The Earth is not.
Yeah.
And so as the tectonic plates come together, you'll get bending and folding and twisting and contorting. And so it's not always in the same depth.
Yeah.
And so these guys will drill to, 25 or 3,000 feet. They're like, no, that was a dry hole. Had they gone 2 more feet or 10 more feet or 100 more feet, they'd have hit it. And so we're able to take that guesswork out of the process, which makes these guys excited to work with us. And so when they look at that, they're like, you're saving us money. So yeah, we'll take some of that saved money and give it back in a royalty because you're saving us time and money.
And when we're talking about saving them money, like talk to us maybe about the figures. Like, is it, saving you $10?
Oh,
or am I saying like what do you think?
Drilling is millions of dollars, just to put a rig, just to mobilize a drilling rig from point A to point B is upwards of $300,000.
Wow.
Just to move it from where it's stored to where it's at. Then to actually stand it up, you're another $150,000. So right off the bat, just to get a drilling rig to site and set up, you're in the hole, right?
Yeah.
So if you miss that, you've got all the labor of the guys.
Bankruptcies, high possibility.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the oil industry is very expensive. Salaries are very expensive. Wages for roughnecks, man, they make great money.
Yeah.
But they're in a process or in their industry. They work, they don't work. They work, they don't work. So they demand a lot of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So that expense is in the millions to drill.
Wow. And so, and I think that's what people coming into when they first get involved in debt box are like, in the crypto space, it's like, well, what utility does the token have, right? That's a big thing. And what people don't understand is the utility that we're bringing is actually solving a real world problem on the physical side. And I think you get to see that a lot better than we do on the digital side, because you see the figures that they're spending to get a rig stood up or to move it 100 yards down, right?
Exactly.
They missed, so now they got to go over here and move it. They have cost of labor, all the roughnecks. They have the cost of getting a crane out there to get it set up, because they don't just have a crane laying out there, They've
got the fluids they spend while drilling the hole, and that's not cheap. That's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
They've got drill pipe that they have to deal with. They have to have tested. They have to then bring in casing and case the hole. Dude, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars to case one hole. Yeah. It's absolutely expensive.
And what would you say on average? And I know you might not be able to answer this, and I might be throwing you under the bus here, but like if you were to put, a ballpark to it and say, look, if you had a site that went without the technology and went without the Explorer technology versus a site that had the technology, like how much do you think could be saved by the operation, by the Explorer?
So there's a lot of variables in that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go with kind of an average to make it fair, right? So let's say we're drilling to maybe 5,000 feet, right? That's a good medium between 10,000 and so if we're going to drill to 5,000 feet, your budget's probably $2.5 million just to do that. And so the real question is
chump change, right?
Yeah, chump change, right? So the real question now is, did you bet on red or black on the roulette table, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to hit the black and get the oil?
Yeah.
Or did you hit red and get a big goose egg? And so if they're poking holes in the earth to see if it's there because a formation's known to have it and they miss, they've just spent $2.5 million. They have to then move over where they think that they missed it
and maybe move over 100 yards.
100 yards. Yeah. Maybe,
so another $2.5 million.
Maybe 15 feet. And so Yeah, another $2.5 million. So every time they go down hole to that depth, they're $2.5 million. So when they're able to say, you know what, I've seen you do it before. I know that this oil is right here, and it's at this depth within, a certain depth of we call it the head and the feet.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they make their plan to drill, they go with a lot more confidence, and that confidence saves money because instead of poking 4 or 5 holes, they go to the right one and they hit oil.
Wow, I think it's just been amazing, and we were able to travel out to Ghana with you guys. It was an experience, right? There's the good and bad of it because it is a developing nation,
right?
Let's talk a little bit about the Ghana lease. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to us a little bit about that. I know it was like the first ever.
Yeah, it was exciting. So because we had gone through this process, and I'm going to shift into gold for a second
because the gold is the foundation,
right? It's the foundation.
Yeah.
When we went out and we dug, we actually planned 10 holes to be dug with the Minerals Commission when we were doing that project on the gold.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave us that land and we scanned it. We went out there and dug it. And I think you've seen the pictures.
I've seen the pictures, yeah.
On hole number 1, we brought a gold encased, piece of quartz out the size of my fist. And they were blown away. They're like, this is nuts. They're like, we're done. We're sold. Well, that process, and that took years for us to get enough trust to get to there, but that process brought us to a point that they had so much confidence in us that when the Oil and Gas Commission wanted to check a reference, they were not checking with somebody in the United States or somebody in Brazil. They were calling their own people in their own country and had an absolute certainty that this was real. Not only that, the Minerals Commission certified the technology at that point. So to be able to walk in and say, we're bringing this technology that your government has certified, and here's all the data to back it up. We sat down to look at that as we were negotiating that oil and gas lease in Ghana, and they had an enormous amount of confidence because they had that backstory. So when we sat down with them, we were able to get the first ever land-based oil and gas exploration agreement and permit from the government of Ghana. And it was nice that you had the opportunity to meet with John Darko, who's on the board, and he talked about how difficult it is. Now, there's a bunch of people offshore, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's nobody onshore.
Who's offshore, by the way?
I think no, they're big boys. The big boys are offshore. An offshore rig is $1 to $2 billion just to set the rig up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. The fortunate thing is that where they have the gas depot for all the stuff coming in offshore for the gas wells, we're a couple miles from that at most.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so for us to have scanned that, seen it, we're ready to actually move forward.
And what have you guys estimated kind of that reserve looks like? Can you share that?
I can't share that.
Can't share that?
No,
okay.
No, I wish I could.
Okay.
I can't share that.
All right.
I
figured I'd ask.
It's massive. It is massive.
That's awesome. I know there's a lot of plans out there. I know there's some stuff you guys got to keep confidential for now.
Yeah.
But it's been an amazing time, Roy. I'll tell you that. Like a lot of our community, I know we're more on the digital side. I know me and you don't get to interface that much, but I think this is what the people need. They need to see like, hey, this isn't just some other crypto token meme project out there, right? And so I would guess, just as far as kind of closing up, what do you feel obviously there's a lot of differences, but what would you feel sets us apart from any other type of node projects that are out there right now?
Well, the royalties off the revenue off the royalties, I think, is probably the biggest thing, because none of the other nodes and cryptocurrencies out there that I know of have a stable revenue model that stands behind that actually props that token up. The other thing is that, there are other deflationary tokens, but the genius between what was brought in from the digital side, which you've had that opportunity to speak with Jake and Jason about. The genius behind that is bringing that digital side and coupling it, that deflationary digital side, and coupling that with a tangible royalty that comes in and just piles on top of that deflation by buying token out of the market and burning it through the revenues. That's a huge difference.
I think people don't understand that concept yet.
No, I don't.
The importance of it and I think maybe they can see that hopefully now with Bev that we're announcing.
Yeah.
And the quarterly quartering, I guess is what
that
we're
quarterly quartering is awesome.
Quarterly quarterling.
Yeah.
And so I think people will start to see it in that, and they'll start to be able to say, whoa, what's it going to do in a year, NATG or Black Gold? What's it going to do in 2 years? Where's it going to be in 3 years? 5 years down the road? What type of potential do these projects actually have? And I know talking to Shad a little bit, your guys' goal in making this partnership with Fleet Aerospace and having your guys' own satellites in space.
Yeah.
You guys are going to have a lot more work on the physical side, I'm assuming?
A lot more work on the physical side. In fact, now that you bring up Fleet, I wasn't going to say anything because I keep forgetting that announcement's not been done yet.
It hasn't been done yet, but this recording
will be posted after. So the cool thing about Fleet, and I'm really excited about it, is Fleet has an overlay technology for the technology we have. So it's going to just make what we do even that much better. I mean, it's amazing. I'm so stinking excited about it. It's crazy. Not only are we partnering with a satellite company that launches these satellites and puts them into space, we get satellite time now that is different than the satellite time we've had to pay for, beg, borrow, and steal in the past, right? The other thing is that with these nodes that they're putting out on the ground,
we're seismic
getting
nodes.
The seismic nodes, right? The seismic phones is what most of the people call them.
Gotcha.
But they've retroed these seismic phones that give us additional data and confirming data to what we have in a satellite. It also boosts the 3D renderings that we've been working on to just with the single technology. And to tell you, we've got another technology that we're planning on overlaying, but that's for another time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about you guys, right? You guys are always expanding. You're always growing. I think the biggest thing that we've always been struggling with in the direct sales space, and you've kind of been around my mentor a little bit. You've seen the companies that we've done, the last 10 or so years.
Yeah.
And you've seen our struggles in the space. On the actual sales and marketing side. What I love about what you guys have put together is there's real world projects with backing basically something that someone is sitting at home with this little box in their home or their V box or their desktop app is they're collecting a digital reward that they can go in, exchange into a digital asset, and they can do whatever they want with it at that point, right? So I love that every project that we have has the liquidity to support the numbers we can bring in.
Right.
Because I feel like we're going back to what we talked about, some of these projects out there, they don't have the liquidity or the volume to support tens of thousands. So all these people, pump and dump it. The founders come in, they make all this money, then they dump it, and then the average person gets left holding the bag.
Right.
And I feel like this is something that we could take to the masses all around the world and give them a project that they can purchase their node, their digital node, their blockchain node, and they can collect a reward, and whatever they do with that reward, whether the token price is low or high, that's up to them, right?
Well, the thing I love about it is, like you said, people can go into their house and they can participate through this. They can participate in something that they would not normally ever have a chance to participate in.
I can make money off Roy Nelson's efforts.
Absolutely.
That's the best thing in the world.
It absolutely is.
Because you're out there working for me. I own my BGLD licenses.
That's right.
You're out there making all the deals, making it happen. And so
it's pretty awesome.
I have one of the best experts. We have some of the best technology out there.
Yep. And
I'm literally sitting in my home collecting the digital reward for the work that you guys are doing
for other people's efforts. It's amazing.
That's what we call leverage, and
that's right.
That's
which
amazing.
is key to your industry.
Very key to this industry, and I think that's what a lot of people around the world. And I know I asked Jason this, and I'll kind of ask you the same question. When you guys first started thinking up this idea of marrying the commodities in crypto and the debt box, kind of what was the goal? What was your goal? What was when you saw this? Besides, obviously, everybody wants to make money, but what do you think the impact that DebtBox can have on the average node holder?
You know, for me, that's a two-part answer.
Okay.
So the first answer is similar to what I was just saying, that if you take a look at the opportunity people have to enter a project like mining or oil,
almost zero.
Almost zero.
Yeah.
There's very few people that can actually do something with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cost is ridiculous. But for a bunch of people to be able to earn rewards off of the royalty of that project is significant, which means that opens up that opportunity, that project opportunity, to the masses that normally wouldn't have that opportunity. Secondarily, what that does, and one of the reasons that debt holds so well, it has an acronym, right? But our goal was people to be able to get out of debt, people to be able to have an additional source of revenue in their own homes that would allow them to bolster their current work or their current paycheck. And
I think the pandemic has made that more of a necessity than ever before, at least in my time as an adult, right?
Oh yeah.
It's just accelerated for people looking for a plan B.
Right.
And I think Debt IX, these online communities, it's the future, right? We're entering into this gig economy. We've had the Airbnbs, the Ubers. You're a driver out there. You can go and make money. You have a property, a room. You can rent it out. With the DebtBox, it's literally you buy your license, you host them, you provide electricity and internet to it, and it does what it needs to. You don't have to be a scientist to figure it out. You don't need to be an expert. You guys have made it so easy. Switching over to the digital side a little bit, download an app, you log in, you set up your 2FA. And you click a few buttons, you're able to convert into a larger currency. You send that over to an exchange, you're able to liquidate. And I know you guys we're launching some stuff over the weekend where you're going to be able to have your own MasterCard now tied to your account.
Right. And we're extremely excited about that. That was a goal that we had very early on, because to be able to take a project like this and then make it fungible for the masses and then be able to have the simplicity of, I want to spend that. It's significant.
Instead of having that barrel of gas of oil in the corner.
I got 8 of them in the garage. What do we do?
Yeah.
Right?
Now we got to weigh. I get on my phone. I move some money over. I top off my card. I got to go down to Smith's or Kroger's or get some gas and some actual gas in the truck or diesel. And I swipe the card. I'm able to go off and I'm all about it. Right. So
absolutely.
And taking this opportunity to people all around the world. And let's close with this real quick, Roy, because I know you've traveled all around the world. You've done a lot of work in Ghana. And I know the impact that it can have on a person in a developing country. My wife is from Peru. Their family probably never made more than $200 to $300 a month.
Yeah.
And you see that's the average Ghanaian, Peruvian, Colombian, Brazilian. That's their life. The masses, not right. I'm not talking about, but the masses. In these countries. What type of impact can this project have in their life? Because $200 a month, I think some of these projects are producing the equivalent of that in the digital reward, right? And so, I don't know. You've been out there. You've traveled around the world. I know the impact, but maybe share with our viewers here. What do you think this project can do for developing nations?
This project for developing nations for us is extremely exciting. One of the goals that we had when we first got over in Ghana and worked with the Minerals Commission is we presented them a plan to be able to change the villages' lifestyles where we go into, as opposed to taking and running off. We wanted to better their life. We wanted to raise their standard of living. And so that has carried over into this. And you're right, I've been all over the world. I've lived in third world countries and developing countries, and many of those people with a good job make $90 a month.
Yep.
And I can't imagine even trying to live on $90 a month in those countries. Yep. And this project, in many ways, not just the digital side, but in the physical side, raises the standard of living for these individuals, because the projects we're doing to the people that we're working with, it's creating jobs. And so we go in and say, hey, we want to help you with your project. We want to trade. We want a horse trade. And what that does is when they go in with the certainty that, hey, you know what, we know we're going to have this project, you know how many people they have to hire to be able to fulfill that project? So on the physical side, we're changing lives. And on the digital side, we're changing lives, because you're absolutely right. For someone to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to get a product, a license, and I'm going to mine where I normally wouldn't be able to mine. And the awesome thing about this being eco-friendly, not just on the physical side, but on the digital side, is normally they wouldn't be able to pay the power bill to mine for a different
hundreds
token.
of dollars per machine.
They wouldn't be able to buy a rig to do that. And what they're able to do here is change their life, change their lifestyle, raise their standard of living, because in the gig economy we're in, right? This is a gig. And it's funny, I've got some friends that I've talked to a lot about this, and I tell them, I'm like, dude, how many employees do you have, right?
Yeah.
How many licenses do you have?
Yeah.
Because those licenses are like an employee, right?
Yeah.
They're working for me 24 hours a day. I can't get that anywhere else in the world.
That is awesome. That is awesome, Roy. Well, we're coming up on our time limit here. I appreciate you. I know we're going to be seeing a lot of you this weekend, and I hope a lot of our people around the world can start to see, look, hey, yeah, we're on the digital side. We're selling these licenses like crazy, but there's a whole physical world out there that a lot of our user base isn't even aware of. And that starts with you and Chad and boots on the ground. And so I know for me and the people that know me, I just want to tell you thank you for all the hard work that you do to making this possible for us, making it possible for, you know, Jake and Jason to do their thing with us on the digital side as well. And it's enabling and empowering people around the world. So Roy, thank you so much.
You're welcome, man. It's a labor of love. So you're very welcome.
All right, guys, we'll see you guys on the next episode.